Welcome to the Bonnie and Ronnie and Marcus and Bobby show.
I like that.
Greetings.
Yes. Yeah, it does seem like you could sort of make a tongue twister out of that. Bonnie and Bobby and Ronnie and Marcus.
Yep.
How's it going,
All
guys?
three names are a little closer sounding than there's just mine. But
Yeah, it doesn't work here anymore.
I know.
I'm gonna close my door.
All right. That's
How's everyone's day? You guys ready to talk about our wonderful topics today?
yeah, actually I'm really interested in this topic. I'm kind of sorry that we don't have a crash test video to look at.
Well, yeah.
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 The IIHS.org, and you can look up your car and see how it fared in the crash tests.
Wow.
Yeah. You and I kind of have a closer relationship to these topics than the other two in here. But
Yes, we're very interested in safety technology.
after the last couple of months, yes, indeed.
Yeah.
How's everybody doing? Everybody good?
Yes, sir.
We're live.
I know
Another great day.
it's a good topic because we've had recently two of you have been in major accidents and have had to experience the safety technology in your own vehicles, potentially even saving your lives, right?
Absolutely.
This is Marcus's car.
Well, was my car.
Right.
I mean, look at that thing. This is a Toyota 86, 2018,
2017.
2017.
Yep. Was
You were
my
in that
baby.
vehicle. When did you get into a wreck?
It was May 24th of this year, 8:30 at night, when this lady ran a light going about 40, hit me head on, and as I was making my way through the intersection at about 10 miles an hour. Yeah, so definitely grateful for airbags, especially the curtain airbags and the airbag from the steering wheel. The curtain airbag definitely had some profound, I don't know, it helped me out a lot because the paramedic said without that, and if I was 5 feet further down the road, I probably wouldn't have walked away from the accident. So,
Well, also, like, dude, like, the airbags kept you awake. Like, you didn't get knocked unconscious and burn up in the car.
well, I was unconscious for about a minute, but it wasn't long enough to, yeah, the car caught on fire instantly. And, yeah, this video will really show the char marks from everything.
Look at
Yeah,
that.
so she hit me pretty dead on. You can see where the fire started at the battery and the ECU, burned a hole in my windshield, the mirror,
That's a
everything.
burnt hole in the windshield. Like I thought the windshield just broke, but
No, it didn't break. It literally burned a hole through it. When I woke up and looked at the fire coming up from the car, there was still a windshield there. I didn't notice that. That was 2 days after the accident at the impound lot. And yeah, I didn't notice that it did anything to the windshield until I went to go get everything out of it.
oh my gosh. So
Yeah.
she was pretty head on, and then the side curtain airbags and the steering wheel airbag went off.
Yep.
Okay.
And in this one, I had an airbag under the steering wheel for my lap. So that one didn't really do much besides mess up my knee. But that, I mean, I'm walking, I'm alive, I'm here, and after that, that's just what I'm grateful for. So
That's a lot of damage, though, for, I guess, how does it work in physics? Like, if she's driving 35 and you're driving 10, is that a 45-mile-an-hour crash?
Yes, it is.
That's physics,
Yep.
which ended up like this.
Yeah. So this was a 50-mile-an-hour crash.
Okay, well, your safety tech helped you in the car, right?
absolutely. I mean, the only real safety tech I had in this were the crumple zones, which you can obviously see where the engine folded, and then on the video, like where the hood folded, those are crumple zones. It dropped the engine, so the engine didn't come back through the dash and into the cockpit. But other than that, I had, I don't have. It was older, and it was a race car, so it didn't have any of the autonomous systems in it. But the airbags, the crumple zones, and just the structural integrity of the chassis really helped.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was something that I found really interesting about looking into the way that this works. So I didn't realize this, but the whole car is made to protect the passengers. So they do on both sides, on the back and the front. If they get hit, they just crumple, and then I believe it's reinforced at the the division between the engine and the passenger compartment. So I've been seeing in these crash test videos over and over and over again what they're really trying to do, because they've got it set up so that the car crumples around the passengers in the little passenger box. What they're really trying to do is prevent, at this point, because they've been trying to do this since 1910, when when automobiles started to become really popular and accidents started to happen. They've been fine tuning this all along. So things that used to kill people, now they're just trying to keep you from having like crushed knees. Now, if your car is like rolled over and the whole thing, if you're in like a 60 mile an hour crash, there's still a good chance that people are going to be killed. It's not perfect, but it's so much better than it used to be.
It's a big argument that people have too. It's like they say, well, the older cars are made of that metal and they're so much safer. It's like it's a common sense thing. Like, you think that those cars are safer. Because when you crash them, they don't look like this, but people don't realize that those hoods that crumple on these cars, they would just slide off and chop your head off.
Yeah.
And even if you like rear-ended somebody, God, I forget what I believe it was a Ford back in the 70s. I forget which model, so forgive me for that. But they had the fuel tank in the back bumper. Mm-hmm. So if you got rear-ended in that car, the whole thing exploded.
Mm-hmm. And die hard.
Both like die hard.
Yeah. But there used to be other problems, that the steering columns didn't collapse, so people would just get stabbed, like they'd be impaled by the steering wheel. So they fixed a lot of stuff like that. And so, I don't think that the older cars also didn't necessarily have airbags. And I don't know if you want to switch to the one in my car, which is
that's what I was going to say. So this accident was May 27th of this year. Marcus Morgan, right here on this video. If you're just joining us, this is Marcus's car, and we're going to talk about safety tech today and what helped save his life. And then we're going to Bonnie's car, which is right here. Bonnie got hit from the side. Mm-hmm. So you want to tell them about that accident, Bonnie?
Yeah. So I was driving north on a city street where there's a median. And so if you're coming across, if you're going east, you're supposed to cross the first part of the street, stop at the median, look to see if anyone's coming, and then cross again. So this young fellow, he just made a mistake. I felt terrible for him, but he just didn't stop. He didn't see me, and he just crashed right into my driver's side door.
How fast was he going, do you think?
So the police officer thought it was between 25 and 30 miles an hour.
And you were sitting still?
No, I was driving north. We just happened to collide at just the right time. And I was driving probably about 30 miles an hour at the same time, but I was driving north and he was driving east. So that's why the door got ripped, like you see how it got pulled apart there.
Am I right on the physics thing? So that energy has to go somewhere. You're moving 35 miles an hour. He's moving 35 miles an hour, but he's T-boning. You're not going head on.
Right.
But even though there's something Neil deGrasse Tyson could probably tell us, but like when he hits you, your energy had to go somewhere.
Yeah.
And we don't,
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember the
comments if you know the answer to that one, but
yeah, I mean, it's pretty much it's going to. Did the car spin around?
No. What ended up happening was it sort of ended up drifting to the right.
Exactly.
And you could actually, it's hard to see here, but the tires got all scraped up, like they're all bald now.
Exactly, because you still had forward momentum. Mm-hmm. So you're going to keep that forward momentum, but with him hitting you from the side, that's going to give you that drifting motion that pushes you off to the right-hand side over there. So The good thing is that it wasn't head-on and it's not a dead stop. When it's dead stop with that much speed, then you're really getting into damage. But the car had a place to go away from other obstacles, basically.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
There was plenty of damage.
Yeah, I mean, that door.
But it's still speed and metal and cars coming at each other. And so there's going to be damage, but the car had a place to go after it hit versus being a dead stop into each other.
Well, I think it would have had some place to go anyway. I mean, it just would have drifted. It would have been pushed to the side, and it might have been tipped over. I would think that the thing that didn't happen because of the momentum of me going forward, that I think what didn't happen was I didn't get flipped over. It got pushed while it's still rolling.
Exactly. I think we're saying the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah. I think what's interesting is like you see the side airbag there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. For those of you watching, like when you're holding on your steering wheel and you're driving, you get hit, a car hits you on the left side, and pushes you this way, what happens is your head, that momentum hits, your head flies into the window. And a lot of people get killed that way because their head hits the window and you get a lot of brain damage right there. But see, she's got what's called a side curtain airbag that came down, like it explodes and it comes out up, whatever direction it comes out. So when her head more than likely hit that airbag.
Yeah.
More than likely it got rattled into it, but it's better than hitting the glass.
And that's why we both have concussions.
Right.
Both of you have
concussions, but not death. So, I mean, I'll take it.
But I've been trying to figure this out, and watching the crash test videos, I think what happens, because I was hit from that side, so the momentum would have been to that side. I think what happens is the airbag, it explodes and it almost pushes you away from you can see in the crash test dummies, your head definitely hits the airbag. But I don't think that's what causes the damage. Like what the airbag did for me here, there's another one that's like at the elbow. I forget what it's called, but it's like, you don't even know it's there until you need it. I was surprised to see it, but it inflates as the car is hitting you and basically prevents, I think that's the reason I didn't come out with a broken arm, is because
or broken hip.
Yeah, because the car essentially it drove right into me basically. That's where I was sitting. And those airbags really, but in the meantime, the momentum of the car going to that side, it hits your neck. It moves suddenly. And that's the reason you get a concussion is because your brain just sloshes against the side of your head and it's injured.
Wow. Well, I'm glad you guys are okay.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, us too.
But I wanted to talk about the airbags for a minute.
On the car picture?
Well, in airbags in general. So the way I thought about this a lot, because, it was very interesting to me. I think what happens is that the airbags, once the accident is actually happening, the airbags are what save your life. And the number of airbags you have in a car differs from car to car. So some cars may only have 4 airbags. Some cars have 8. I got a car with as many as I could possibly come up with. So there's knee airbags and the side curtain airbags and the airbag for the elbow. And there's the ones in the front, and you may or may not have them on the passenger side. So there's all kinds of different ones. You can have them in the back, but sometimes they don't have them in the back.
Yeah.
But that is what saves the life of the person in the car. It keeps them from hitting the hard surfaces, which is what ends up killing people.
I like that. I mean, and the thing about it too is thank you for joining us, Nancy Brisk. We'll get to your comments here shortly. We'll bring them up a little bit later in the video.
Good story. Yeah.
The thing about it is, available safety tech is out there, and you're making some really good points, Bonnie. Not all of these cars are created equal. Not all of them have all of the side airbags and all of the stuff that maybe even you had in this car. And it could vary from, I don't know if it's year to year, but when they redesign these cars every 4 to 5 years, they always raise that technology and things change.
It can vary from trim level to trim level.
Yeah.
Safety can?
Yeah. Airbags.
Airbags. Sometimes if you want certain airbags, it's something you have to add on.
Wow. That's new to me.
Yeah. Some of the lower trim levels will not have the curtain airbags, especially even in the back seats, which surprises the hell out of me because I feel like if you do have kids and, they sit in the back seat and God forbid something happened like that.
Wait a minute. These things are regulated, though. You're telling me that if you spend more money, you can protect your kids in the back? Or can we Google this and get a fact on it?
No, he's absolutely right.
You can get different airbags based on how much money you spent. Is that what you're talking about?
And so when you're talking about regulations, that concerns mostly the structural integrity of the vehicle when you're hitting something. That's what those that's what those safety tests really demonstrate, or are designed to demonstrate. Yeah, the airbags go off and that helps calculate airbag effectiveness, but what they're actually really testing for is structural integrity of the vehicle.
But they mandated the airbags in 94. When I first got in the business in 93, all the vehicles had to have airbags by 94.
But they don't.
Yeah, I'm not mistaken.
They have to.
You have to have airbags, but not all the airbags.
Right.
Not the curtains and the pillars and things all over the.
Yeah.
Whoa, I thought that was mandated and everybody had to do it. So, I don't know if you guys are finding this valuable out there, but I didn't know. I would have to go out and check my car to see which airbags it has. I was just under the assumption that this, what is it called? The National Highway Safety Administration has mandated this stuff. And you're telling me, nope, we need to look at that on every car we buy?
Yeah. That is
Wow.
something that we have to look at.
That's crazy. Okay, cool.
Yeah, it
But,
was.
just like everything, there's a basic acceptable limit. So yeah, all cars at the very basic trim level is going to have that basic acceptable limit. But for those who are willing to pay that extra $100,000 or whatever for a vehicle, yeah, they're getting some extra amenities that you're not getting in a $30,000 car.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's like insurance then. Like you can just pay for the minimum amount, or you can buy 100, 300 or whatever, the limit.
Yeah, but I want to be clear that there are, like, you don't have to buy the most expensive car to get all the airbags.
Yeah, make that clear. Go on, Bonnie.
I mean, like my car, the car that I bought has a lot of airbags, but that's because I put a premium on safety as opposed to different kind, leather or other kinds of things. You can get, if it's important to you, you can get cars that in your price range with the right number of airbags. You might just have to give something else up. And I want to also distinguish them from the other types of safety technology, which primarily prevent the accident from even happening. That is also, those are more expensive much of the time.
I think I know what you're talking about, like active braking, like autonomous braking. Like
lane assist that we were talking about before, or
they're called collision avoidance systems.
Right.
Yeah.
With autonomous braking. Like that's not something, and people should know that that's not standard on your car. Like those things are upgrades, or they're trim levels, or it's just not available in that particular vehicle. What else is so cool about this stuff is how fast some people adopt these things. Like blind spot monitor is something that we would say like 2019, it was like a thing. It started becoming available everywhere. We started seeing it in Toyotas and Nissans. But the Lincoln that I had, that was a 15, had it in the 15. Like you can look at some Lexus vehicles that had some of this technology back in 08. You're right. You have to look at what you're buying. And Bonnie said it properly. Like she bought her car. She had a focus on safety. So she made sure it had all the airbags she wanted. And then she made her purchase instead of assuming it was in the car.
Right.
Yeah.
I looked at all the crash test videos.
You did it all.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and when we're talking about the new safety tech, right? What I see a lot is, when someone does have adaptive stop and go cruise control, which is an excellent feature getting placed in more and more trim levels throughout the market, and the autonomous braking, like we're talking about, and lane keep assist. People don't realize that you still actually have to drive the car. The car isn't going to do everything for you.
Autonomous.
And that's something I run into. Like when I used to work at the dealerships and I'd be showing people how to operate these things, on test drives, they'll take their hands off the wheel and be like, look, it's doing it for me. It's like, no, it's not. Get your hands back on the wheel. You still got to drive your car. And these safety systems are incredible technology. I mean, personally for me, if there's a lane keep assist in the car, I turn that off because I don't like anybody telling me how to drive, especially not a machine. But there's some people like my fiance, one of them, who cannot drive without it on, and it really helps people stay in lanes. But it's so weird to see how many people just think that it'll do everything for you and you never have to touch the brake or steer the car ever again. It's like, no, you still have to do that stuff and still be aware of your surroundings. It's not going to stop you from, doing something stupid and getting in a wreck. Some of them will stop you with the autonomous braking, but I mean, it's still not anywhere near autonomous driving.
Right.
I think the lane keep assist is actually the perfect example of that because I mean, it even says it in the instructions. It's like, it just nudges you back into the lane. It doesn't put you back into the lane. It just moves the steering wheel a little bit like, hey, you might want to move over a little bit to the left here. Because it's like you're still driving the car. Because it would be terrible if you're fighting the car for control of the car, like that's just guaranteed to end in disaster.
Like a sci-fi movie.
Yeah, I'm driving. No, I'm driving. But it doesn't work that way. It's just, they're just kind of reminders, beeps here and warnings there and nudges.
Vibrations here.
Yeah.
Bobby.
And those
What do you
Okay.
think, Bobby, about new available safety tech? Which one would you like to point out today that's
Ooh.
customers
Yeah.
should be looking at?
I was about to make a comment on the previous topic too, if I could.
Yeah.
Waiting for my way in there, but yeah, it's those are mechanical devices too. So the worst possible time to find out that that thing is malfunctioning is when you need it to be working. So you need to be
That's a great point.
actively driving the vehicle, because the autonomous braking had a chip function that's not working, and now you're not pressing the brakes or not paying attention. You're going to find out it wasn't operational when they tell you your car was totaled and why it was totaled. You know, oh, that wasn't operating at the time. But yeah, some of the other safety features that I really like a lot, the heads up display. You know, I really like the heads up display. It keeps people focused on the road, takes away one more reason for them to be looking around or doing something else while they're driving.
That makes sense. I have not been in a lot of cars with HUD or heads up display, but you're telling me like you can either, you know, a lot of the data you're looking at is up, your head's up above the dash.
Yeah, it's all literally in the windshield.
It's on the windshield.
Yeah,
it's right in your line of sight almost, where you should be looking at the road.
They do that with a hologram? Is that how they do it?
It's like a camera that most of them are like hidden up in the dashboard behind the steering wheel, and it just shoots it up onto the screen. Some like in the Buick, they'll have like a little flip up thing that it'll show on, kind of like a screen or a projector screen. But I think it's pretty futuristic and pretty cool. Okay. Like it takes a little bit of time to get used to, but it's pretty dope.
I mean, that stuff's been out since like the 80s. Like they had it in Corvettes.
Knight Rider. No.
Yeah, like they had it in vehicles, but now they're starting to make it more mainstream. And some of the like Mazdas, you can get it in a GT Select or whatever. So yeah, heads up display is pretty cool. Anything else you want to add, Bobby, for safety tech that's interesting to you?
I'm a fan of the autonomous braking. I mean, I'm pretty sure everybody, if they have it in their car, there's been a time when it saved them. You know, we're not always perfect. We're not always paying attention. We're not always avoiding those distractions. You know, so when it's needed, majority of the time it works. I mean, I'm talking a 1% or less time where it malfunctions and you're not paying attention. You know.
Right.
Bonnie, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that particular feature. You can actually set when it goes off, like, you know, far, medium, or near to the car in front of you. So is
cruise. You're talking about adaptive cruise.
No, even with the autonomous braking, you can select the distance that it starts to brake at.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay. So if you're naturally a person that rides the person in front of you a little closer, the car is not stopping you when you don't want to be stopped. Basically, you kind of get to shoot that distance. And the adaptive cruise does the exact same thing.
Yeah. Because most adaptive cruise systems have the autonomous braking, because that way you never have to touch the pedals. All you have to do is steer.
So it's driving itself, right, Marcus?
No, it is not. It is controlling throttle and brake, but you still have to steer the car.
I've experienced it in one of our cars. I came back from Denver and I drove about an hour, and it freaked me out all the way home. Like the thing's slowing down, speeding up. And then, you know, I was just like taking my hands off the wheel and it's drifting, and then it's pushing itself back. It's close. I think we're close. Autonomous braking autonomous driving at some point, but you're right. You got to drive the car, and getting used to it is not easy, because you're used to like the old school cruises. You set it, you're going to do 85 miles an hour until you hit a brick wall. Like, nothing's going to slow the car down. It's like, you know, that's just what's going to happen. But nowadays, like you set it at 85. And it'll stay, you can set the lengths of cars you want to stay behind the car in front of you. And they use lasers. So it'll stay behind that car and it'll slow down and speed up. Now, it won't go over 85. Right. But if that car in front of you is doing 70, it'll keep you at 70 behind them, one car length back or two car, whatever you set it for. So I actually find that feature to be very comfortable and I like it. But it takes a lot of getting used to.
It does. It really does. Because you want to start to press on the brake.
Yeah.
And then it just automatically does it for you. And you're like, oh my gosh. Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's going again.
Are we going to stop or what? You know, and you're doing 75 miles an hour. So it's like, it better work. Bobby, is it malfunctioning? I don't know. Like, you know, so you need to have your foot still on the brake, ready to hit the brake, guys. I mean, it's just, it's not foolproof at this point.
But and then if you press the brake, it yanks it out of cruise control altogether.
It acts the same as it used to. It just cuts it off.
Yeah.
So,
Exactly. And that's, I mean, and you have to be, once again, you have to be paying attention because it's just one of those things. Like, I'm a very analytical, time sensitive type of guy. So it irritates me when I realize that, okay, I'm set at 75. Now I'm behind a vehicle, and before I know it, I'm doing 60 for the past 5 minutes. And I'm like, I'm angry at that. I'm not angry, but I'm a little irritated at that point.
But I want to point out there was some of these things that they're, it's not your 25-year-olds that it's, it's not telling you how to drive. It's that there are things that we don't even really think about that these kinds of features can adjust for, things that are causing accidents. Like I've talked about, like this accident that I had jarred the nerves in my eyes, so they're not syncing up properly, and I'm having to go to therapy for that. But because the car is adjusting, it's telling me when I'm not properly in the lane because I can't quite tell, I'm still able to drive. So you can imagine that as our response times slow and as our vision changes, and you have to, I don't know, like Marcus, you don't know, but like as you get older, like you have to keep like getting new glasses because you can't figure out how to get your vision to work properly with it's like all new and it all has to be adjusted. So the car is compensating for those things. And I think that's the best way to look at it, is that the car is just compensating for our inefficiencies or iniquities or however we want to put it. And as people get older, and like my dad talks about being afraid that he's not going to be able to drive. But as he's getting older, the safety tech is getting better and he has more money, so he can get cars with more safety tech. So he's still driving, and it's fine because the car compensates for those little things that can end up in accidents or create a little bit more likelihood of ending up in an accident.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Bonnie.
I like
really
that
good
point.
point.
And I mean, that's the number one cause of accidents at the end of the day is distracted driving. So whatever those distractions are at whatever time that they happen, that car just gives you an extra little second of, to kind of get back focused in and say, okay, what's happening? It's slowing down. I'm getting too close. Something's beeping. I'm not paying attention to something, and the car is catching it for you.
The thing about the cars, guys, is like there's a war going on right now with your attention, like on your cell phone, on your computer, on Facebook, whatever. Everybody's trying to get your attention. Mm-hmm. And they're doing the same thing with screens in cars. If you look at the Tesla screen, it's getting your attention. So they need to make the cars drive themselves so we can get back to clicking on the ads and buying stuff on Amazon. That's really what this war is about. Is not, like obviously they want to keep it safe, but they are also looking to capitalize on, hey, Bobby, you about to drive by this gas station 15 times, your car's almost empty. Since you ain't driving right now, I'm just gonna pull on in here and oh yeah, and then you're gonna probably be like Amazon. Oh yeah, Amazon, I did need that. Like how many times does that happen when you're scrolling and you're like, yeah, I need to order that. I think the cars are gonna do that. It's gonna pull up to the gas station and be like, okay, fill up. But one more safety thing I want to point out. Nancy put this in here. It's kind of graphic. Look at this. She was T-boned. Driver's side of the car driven by a dead guy who ran a stop sign going very fast. He got shot in a drug deal, then drove away dying. Her Honda CR-V did everything it was supposed to, so she bought a new one. Now they need a new hip, and the shooter is in prison. And then she adds in her front airbags went off. So, that's a very unique story.
Hit pretty hard.
Wow.
That's a difficult story, but you know what? Her car protected her.
Mm-hmm. It did.
The broken hip is a thing that people would get disappointed with, and I'm sorry that happened. And I wish it didn't, but it probably saved her life.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I don't know if she's still there, but I'm wondering if that car had side curtain airbags.
Nancy, if you got some time, post in there if you had side curtain airbag, which airbags went off in the car that helped save you.
Yeah, that's
all right.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, it was a pretty crazy story.
I think I haven't talked about what safety tech I'm interested in, or so
yeah.
I appreciate you guys' comments, and it's like, to me, the autonomous driving is one thing that I'm interested in. I think the cars will be safer because human error. I think that once they really define it in the next 20 years, it'll be like Iron Man and it'll get a lot better. But I do like this autonomous braking because I have a new driver in my house that's 15 years old. He's going to be turning 16 this month, but he still needs another 45 hours of driving. So he won't be on the road by himself anytime soon, but I'm paying attention to blind spot monitor, autonomous braking. I'm just paying attention to it because, it's just, it's really hitting home right now.
Yeah, for a new driver, those things can be good reminders of, because we've all forgotten how, like we've forgotten how when you first start to drive, like you don't really know, you don't have all that experience to fall back on, but the car is reminding you. So I think that's a good.
Yeah, and talking about blind spot monitors, those, I mean, I didn't have them in the old car, and now I have them in my new one. But, what's great about the blind spot monitors for me is that in my two-door coupe, I have a lot of blind spots because my pillar's in the back. As soon as I look back, there's just a pillar. So it's really hard to look through the little quarter window in the back seat. And it's really nice to have those blind spot monitors there, especially since I'm in such a really little car that's low to the ground. And when I'm driving down the road and I see, as a little car, it has been making me nervous driving along, bigger trucks or something like that. And now I'm starting to see more and more of those blind spot monitors pop up in their mirrors. And as soon as I see that, I'm like, okay, they're going to know I'm here. I'm okay.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah. When you're driving behind somebody, you're coming up on them, you can see it go off in their mirror.
Yep. Yeah. And it makes me feel better because I know that when they look into their mirror, they're going to see that I'm in their blind spot instead of just turning.
That's a good point.
And you know what else I like about the advancement of the blind spot monitors? Now they've added the noise or the beeping with the car when it seems as if you're not paying attention to that light. Because I've been there. That light has come on, and sometimes you've gotten accustomed to it, and it's almost like it's there. You see it, but you didn't really react to it. And I've made that mistake before, and I was thankful that I got a little beep or a vibrate or something in the vehicle to kind of give me another nudge to say, "Hey, this is not safe."
You know what? So you talk about like driver monitoring,
right?
Certain cars have that. Like I don't know, didn't do any research for this video, but I think we could research that and talk about it. Like active driver monitoring, they have those packages in some of these luxury cars, and I don't know if it's monitoring where your eyes are, where you're sitting, or stuff like that. But I know that active stuff is available. Do you know, Marcus?
Yeah, it tracks your eyes and your hands.
Wow.
So if your hands are not on the steering wheel with enough force, it'll yell at you, and then it'll track your eyes. If your eyes are wandering too much, it'll beep and let you know that you need to focus on the road. Yeah.
How does it track your eyes?
That's a great question.
It's got to be cameras. They're like little
cameras.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, most every car has some sort of camera inside and then like for the adaptive cruise control and everything, it's radar and LiDAR that control all of that.
LiDAR. Yeah.
All of those systems. So, I mean, yeah, it's got to be camera. The only thing I could think of is cameras, really.
Yeah.
Like maybe in the digital dashboard.
We'll have to look that up for another video, but
yeah.
Let me bring this real quick, Bonnie. Nancy had a follow-up.
Yeah.
She only had front airbags. This is for guys, if you're just tuning in. We had a lady who was hit by a dead guy running away from a drug deal, and her car saved her. But her car was a 14 with 33,000 miles and only had front airbags. Now she has both. But in the old car, it only had front airbags. So she got a hip. She's having to get a new hip. Bonnie, you talked about yours early in the video. Mm-hmm. You had those airbags down there and the head stuff. So we don't know what type of damage your body would have taken if you didn't have those airbags, Bonnie.
No, there's a reason they put them in the car. And
going back to look at the picture of your car, like if you did not have these airbags on the side, we don't know how much damage you would have sustained.
Right.
Yeah.
Looking at the door's stronger than you.
Yeah. That's true. Soft.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
And then Nancy added in. She takes her son's Ford's driving class. She recommends it for new drivers up to 22 years old. I don't know much about Ford's driving class. My kid's in Master Drive. I know there's options you can take, but she says it was really nice. So if any of you guys out there have new drivers, maybe Ford's is something you can look into. Thanks for sharing that with us, Nancy.
I want to, going back to that comment, she talks about the skid pad there. Mm-hmm. If you have a young driver who has not driven or is learning to drive, and they have not driven on a skid pad yet, that is one of the most highly recommended things I could suggest is get them on a skid pad and tell them how to control a car in a slide. Because when it starts raining really heavily, like it has been the last couple of weeks, and people just automatically don't know how to drive when rain starts falling from the sky. But when the roads get wet and you hydroplane and you start to slide, I mean, without skid pad or any sort of experience, it's going to be really hard to stop that slide.
Right.
Well, I agree.
Yeah, that was something I did. I have a 16-year-old as well. And while, I was teaching her how to drive, my 19-year-old, when I was teaching him how to drive, obviously I do it in a safe area, but we're in Colorado, we get snow. And it's like, you're not going to gain any real experience if you never know what it feels like when the vehicle loses traction.
Yeah.
So I prepare them for when we're going to hit a puddle, prepare them for, hey, when we go around this curve, it's going to lose some traction, be prepared. This is how you navigate it. So, I mean, yeah, the courses are the best way to go about that with professionals, but it can be done.
Yeah, absolutely.
She even added in is free, and they travel around the U.S.
Wow.
So you guys got new drivers like me. I'm probably going to go look into this Ford thing now to see where they're going to be in Colorado Springs. Maybe it's something that Jude could go check out and get on a skid pad. I think he did something. He told us he was doing skidded driving when he first started, but I don't know if they had a pad.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. Thanks for sharing, Nancy.
Yes, I grew up in Cleveland. We didn't need a skid pad.
I learned on a skid pad and then I perfected it by drifting. So,
Okay.
But the skid pad is what started. I was like, oh, this is cool.
This is a safety video.
Sorry.
In South Carolina, we get heavy rain. So, I mean, the hydroplaning is going to happen, loss of traction at times, so what happens when that vehicle starts to fishtail, things like that.
You know what's funny about that, Bob, is you're absolutely right. I hydroplaned a lot when I was a kid because I'm from Virginia. Mm-hmm. It's like, having a rainy week is a normal thing.
Right.
Hydroplaning to me starts when the rain first, the streets are dry, and then it starts to rain, and you're going down the highway at 70. That's when the water is not mixed with the oil yet, and it's just riding on top of the oil, and so you hit it. I've actually done that. I've done a 360 on the highway at 70 miles an hour. Luckily, it was in what they call a Honda CRX, very low profile, very wide stance. The car did not flip over, so I was very lucky.
That's considered black ice, that oil water mixture at the beginning of a rainstorm.
You and I take it for granted, though, because that's where we're from. Think about our kids here. I don't know. They're never driving in a rainy day here. Like, we get 300-something days of sunshine in Colorado Springs. So I think this is very valid stuff people need to pay attention to.
And talking about
I'm looking into it now for my kid, like, okay, we're going to need some water driving. And
with hydroplaning, it's really imperative that you have good tires, because the reason you hydroplane is the tread that is on your tires is meant to expel water, right? Mm-hmm. So if you don't have enough of that tread, it's not going to you're not going to have any rubber on the road. You're just going to have rubber on water, and that's when you start to slide.
Riding on water.
Yeah.
Is that the same? And actually, maybe this is a good segue, but I was going to ask if that's how snow tires work as well. I know they have more purchase on the road, but they also expel the moisture.
Yeah. And for snow tires, you see they're a little more aggressive on the outside, and that's to gain traction if you really need to get into some of the deeper stuff so you don't get stuck. And then you've got the studs to go over if you want to go that far. But it's really especially just with the wet weather tires, and I guess they're not just really wet weather, just regular tires. I'm thinking racing, but with tires, the tread is literally just meant to expel water. You could have the same amount of traction on slicks on a dry day that you would actually have probably more traction on slicks on a dry day than you would in your regular tires. So that's really what the tread is for, is to expel that water.
Gotcha.
You know what? It is a good segue that you said that, because the next debate is all-wheel drive safer than front-wheel drive and rear-wheel drive. I mean, obviously it's subjective, sorry. But we argue about it in this office all the time. So I'm open for the debate. I know that consumers have their thoughts on this stuff. Who wants to give it a start?
Well, I'll hit it off first, just on the general side of things. I mean, now that we're on Facebook, we have to recognize that everybody's in different locations. So kind of what we were talking about, some people are dealing with rain, Some people are dealing with mud. Some people are dealing with snow. Some people are dealing with heavy ice. You know, so it depends on your region, your location, and what's going to make you safe driving around your neighborhood.
Yeah, absolutely. And it really depends on situation for me, you know, like I drive a rear wheel drive car. Is it the smartest when it comes to the wintertime? No, because it's very hard to get traction on hills. But a lot of people, you know, that I talk to, when they're talking about all-wheel drive or front-wheel drive, with some of the safety systems in the front-wheel drive cars, like stability control and traction control, it's still really hard to get those cars to fishtail in the snow if you have front-wheel drive. I mean, front-wheel drive will do just fine in the snow. All-wheel drive is definitely nice because you have all 4 tires driving the car, but front-wheel drive will do just fine. I mean, safety-wise, if that's what we're talking about through like weather and snow, I think front-wheel drive and all-wheel drive are about equal. You know, when it comes to snow, rear-wheel drive is really what you don't want to be driving.
Right.
That's what Marcus drives, because
and I drive a rear-wheel drive car. So call me a hypocrite, but I mean, it is what it is.
To caveat on for what Marcus is saying about the front wheel all-wheel drive, I think it differs when you start dealing with speed. With the front wheel drive in snow, you have that instance where you could potentially understeer. So therefore, you're trying to turn, and the weight of that car is just going to keep you moving forward. But when you have that all-wheel drive, now you have all these tires attempting to push you in the direction that you're trying to go, or keep the car moving in the direction that you're trying to go. So I mean, then it comes back to speed and stopping, which, you know, if you're in a situation like that, you're going to have a problem.
Thank you for knowing the proper difference of understeer and oversteer, Bobby. I appreciate that.
You're going to need him to test that out and bring it up in the Monday meeting and go over it with me. But okay. Don't feel bad, people out there, if you're listening. Like, you know, he lost me too.
Hey, well, you know, I would try to explain it, but I might mess my whole self up after that.
What do you think, Bonnie? All-wheel drive safer than front-wheel drive and rear-wheel drive?
Is it a lot safer? I mean, I think it does depend on what you're doing. What I've learned through years of driving front-wheel drive cars, and I still have a front-wheel drive car because it's cheaper. It doesn't cost as much to maintain it. It doesn't cost as much to buy it. All-wheel drive is something you pay for. In a place where it doesn't snow that often, and knowing that having good tires makes a really big difference, and knowing how to drive the car, like Bobby points out, knowing how to drive the car in the snow. You know, like I said, I came from Cleveland, so, you know, I'm already compensating for the front-wheel drive, you know, for the back tires not being controlled by the computer. I don't think it's safe. It's that much more safe or useful to me. And I live on a hill, so I've never had trouble getting up the hill, even in the tiny little Toyota Prius that, you know, got wrecked on a sunny day, sunny, dry. That's so yeah, I would say that for some people, it does seem to give them a lot of security and confidence. But it does not, like, I don't think it's 100% necessary, even here.
I can agree with that. I think if I was, and you guys have heard me talk about it, it's usually posed to me in the question of parents want their kids to have an all-wheel drive. And I usually talk about that. Like, I lived in Minnesota, and I only wrecked the vehicles that were four-wheel drive and all-wheel drive because I couldn't stop. I mean, but what I could do as a 20-something-year-old is I could get going faster in the snow. And there was a lot of snow there. Like, it was always snowing.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, I got a four-wheel drive. I'm rolling. And I was just moving and going by people that weren't able to move as fast, as quickly, but then I couldn't stop. And then, you know, it's usually the question, I'm dealing with it just for Colorado Springs. Like, do we really need it in the Springs? Bobby, you made a great point. Like, it depends where you are in the world, but like if you live in Woodland Park, maybe you might need it, you know, because it snows a lot more. But in the Springs, I've noticed that it's not as much. And especially if you're sacrificing some of the safety tech we talked about earlier. So if I had to pick between getting a front-wheel drive vehicle with autonomous braking and blind spot monitor, driver awareness stuff, I'm probably going to go that direction instead of an older car without the safety tech. Just have the all-wheel drive, thinking it's safer, because we all think it's. I think it's a false sense of security.
Yeah.
The argument and debate can be, yes, we could continue to research and figure out all-wheel drive might be safer, but I would want to measure it and have how much safer and why and these types of things. But if I have to sacrifice it and get an older car for all-wheel drive, I'm probably going to just go with the front-wheel drive and get some of the latest safety tech, traction control, stuff like that. And it's tell my kid, if it's 10 inches of snow, you're not going to work. If you get fired, don't worry about it. Your dad says you don't have to go to work.
Hey, Ronnie,
put you on the road, you know?
In my situation, so now I prefer an all-wheel drive. And to be specific, in my situation, to come from our office to my home is almost entirely uphill. There's some downhills in there, but you know, for an all-wheel drive, yes, I will be able to get up that hill. It's going to take a whole nother set of skills to make sure I'm not going down a hill too fast, making sure I'm able to stop all the other stuff. But it's a front-wheel drive will get up that hill as well, but you're going to be spinning your wheels for a while, and it's going to take a while for you to get up that hill.
Well,
you know, rear-wheel drive, you're stuck.
It takes a certain amount of skill. I mean, I think you're right about that. That, you know, driving small cars on hills or front-wheel drive cars on hills
and snow combined.
Yeah, in slippery conditions, it can be done. It just have to know how to do it. And I would really like to put in a plug for snow tires. That snow tires can get you places that you didn't think you could go with your car. That even there's something about them, they just stick to the road. I did a test one time in Cleveland. It was like in Cleveland, it would snow and snow and snow, and they'd plow, but there would be ice underneath the snow. And one time I was driving on the ice on a side street, and I'm like, I'm just going to test out these snow tires. So I sped up, and then I slammed on the brakes, and the car stopped. Yeah. So that a set of snow tires can
Bobby,
do.
You guys have great points, Bobby. I think what you're talking about is exactly right. Going up the hills. You think about your kids going up the hills. It's a lot of snow on the ground. Okay, and I'll be honest with you, I would prefer all-wheel drive as well. If we go back to what I said, right? If I got to sacrifice and go to older car, no, I'll take front-wheel drive. But Bonnie, that is a great point too. It kind of couples with Bobby's because it's like, look, you know why people don't buy them is because they're expensive and they're hard to deal with because you have to take them off and put them in the garage in the summertime. You know, unless you want to drive around on this, they're really noisy. They're hard. You know, they don't feel comfortable. I don't even think I know many people that have them. But if you have a problem in the snow and you have a front-wheel drive car, she's absolutely right. You put snow tires in that car, it's a completely different drive. Blizzaks, they're called Blizzaks.
Yeah, Blizzaks are the best ones.
They're the best ones.
But they're actually the reason you might not, it might be that the reason you don't know anybody with snow tires is because these days you can get snow rated all season tires, and so they're cheaper than Blizzaks are super expensive.
Snow rated, yes, that's true. I've heard of that.
Yeah,
all weather tires.
They were fantastic. You don't have to take them off and put them on. You don't have to be changing them out at the different seasons. You don't have to store them. But when it snows, they give you a lot more traction than your typical all season tires. So you'd have to talk to a tire expert to find out exactly which ones. But overall, I'm gonna do that again next time I have to get tires. Is get a snow rated all seasons.
And honestly, tires are the most underrated part of your car. Mm-hmm. People don't change them often enough. They don't rotate them enough. I mean, tires will change not only how your car feels, how it performs, how it stops, how it goes. Literally everything about your car will be affected by minus the tech inside, but everything will be affected by what kind of tires you put on. That's another thing that should be noted when we're talking about all-wheel drive is if you do have an all-wheel drive vehicle, you have to replace all 4 tires. You cannot just replace 1 or 2 because then that completely destroys the differentials, will completely destroy your axles. Nancy says how it sounds as well. Yes, it affects how the vehicle sounds on the road, kind of the noise that comes through the wheel well. And also difference between I get asked a lot, what's the difference between 4-wheel drive and all-wheel drive? 4-wheel drive is not all-wheel drive all the time. And a lot of people don't understand that. You have to actually stop the car, put it in neutral, put it into 4-wheel drive, and then you have 4-wheel drive. But that has a transfer case instead of a differential, but I won't get into that. But yeah, once again, with 4-wheel drive vehicles as well, you change all 4 tires, not just 1 or 2. I recommend changing all 4 tires no matter what your car. But just make sure that the wheels that drive the car, all of those tires need to be the exact same. Otherwise you can mess a lot of things up in your car.
Right.
Good point.
And to caveat on that, the front wheel drive and the rear wheel drive, then you have the ability to rotate your tires in a timely manner where they can wear evenly and you can replace all four at the same time. You know, if you start to forget about that, you get too low on your tread, then you end up having to make that decision of, should I just replace two or should I replace four? Also, I lived in many regions of the world being military, you know, so like when I lived in Germany and that in a mountainous area, we got snow, all that stuff. It was mandated that we put on snow tires at a certain time in the year, you know, and there's certain places in the United States where certain areas of the road are mandated snowshoes, you know, the chains and all that stuff, you know. So, and I also wanted to comment just while we was talking about front wheel drive for Bonnie, front wheel drive is the best on fuel economy.
Yeah.
Rear wheel drive comes after that, and then all wheel drive and four wheel drive are the least efficient when it comes to fuel economy.
Yep. It's because I mean, when a lot of people don't really think about it, you know, it's like all of the power is put to all four wheels instead of just two of them. So that uses up more gasoline.
Yep. And all that equipment has extra weight that's put on the vehicle. The front wheel drive vehicle is easy to set that up. So those vehicles are usually lighter and it's just more efficient.
Yeah.
If you're working within a budget and you want to have a safer vehicle for your kids, I think you guys just pointed out something valuable. Look at your tires. I mean, maybe you don't need to get a newer car. Maybe you need some better tires. Like you have bad tires or really cheap tires. They're not performing well on dry, wet, sand. It doesn't matter. They're just not performing well. You can really change the way your car responds, reacts, stops. The tires is what stops the car. The brake stops the tires stop the car. You know, so I think that's a great point. You guys were talking around it. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. We can segue into what we recommend. And, you know, like when we're talking to people and they like, if I was to ask you this question, guys, hey, I'm looking for a car for myself. I'm kind of into safety. I was in a wreck a month ago. I'm talking about two people in the room, you guys. You know, what safety tech would we recommend to people based on a certain budget? Let's just use like, you know, what safety tech would you recommend in the $35,000 range? Like that's a Honda CRV, that's a RAV4, that's a Nissan Rogue. Most of the suspects for SUVs, right? So what type of, Tiguan. So what type of safety tech, if someone was interested in safety, would you recommend?
I think Bonnie and I can both say, look at what kind of airbags it has. Look at what kind of airbags it has. For me, my big ones are, if you are looking at an automatic car, adaptive stop and go cruise control is great. My biggest thing though is blind spot monitoring, honestly. Really, it has given me such a peace of mind since having that in the car, especially even with other people on the road having it. But
when you're making
absolutely. Well, it makes people more predictable, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah. Because I mean, when you see that little light come on, you really think they see you or they know you're there, so they're not going to do anything stupid. But the $35,000 range, most of those cars have great safety tech in them, like the adaptive cruise control, the lane keep assist, and the blind spot monitoring. Some of them won't have the, pedestrian crossing warning or whatever, but those are the big three that I recommend. But yeah, make sure you check to see what kind of airbags are in your car. If you don't even know what you have in your current car, go in and find, there's a little circle that says SRS in it. Any of those, that's where your airbags are. Bonnie, what do you think?
I agree wholeheartedly that if the first thing to see is how many airbags are in that car and where they are. Because there's all this stuff you don't even think of, like what would happen if you were in a head-on collision, what would happen to your knees and legs, or like in my case, like that side airbag, that the lower one, my arm would have been broken if it hadn't been for that one.
Because like, telling you, look at that.
Yep. I should have sent you the picture from the inside. Like you can see the little airbag. It's just like hanging there. But that little airbag probably saved my arm and my hip. I didn't even think about the hip, but that's true.
Yeah. It's such a crazy sight when when you're in the car right after a wreck and it's like, what in the world is all this? It's this isn't supposed to be here.
I'm
glad that you had the airbags, Bonnie, because
me too.
Yeah. and definitely curtain airbags probably saved my life as well. Yeah, I've got severe whiplash. I mean, my shoulder, my left shoulder where the curtain airbags hit was pretty messed up until I got an injection in it, and that's been helping the pain. But in like the left side of my body still really messed up, but it would have been so much worse if I didn't have those airbags. Most of the bones in the left side of my body probably would have been broken.
Well, what do you think, Bobby?
I'm a fan of anything that is collision avoidance. So whatever your budget can handle, try to, if that's blind spot monitoring, if that's autonomous braking, if that's, cameras, which is so necessary because there's so many people that can't back up anymore. So I mean, and then the rest comes to not only do you have that equipment in your car, but you got to know yourself. You got to know your own driving capabilities.
Yeah.
And based on those things and those deficiencies, then you can decide, okay, I absolutely need this lane change monitoring or lane monitoring or, whatever the case may be. So just kind of base it off of collision avoidance and your deficiencies and the different things that the car can help you improve.
Yeah, I love what you said right there. Know your driving ability.
Yeah.
Well, listen, it doesn't take a lot of money to get the safety tag. I like the same stuff you guys are talking about. I like the collision avoidance. I like the autonomous braking. I am a huge fan of blind spot monitor, backup cameras, and also cross traffic alert. Like when you're backing up and things are coming from the side, it beeps, it alerts you. And listen, guys out there, you can get this stuff for 35 grand. What I'm describing is just a Subaru Forester.
Mm-hmm.
A Subaru Forester. It has all of this stuff. It has blind spot, lane keep, eyesight, which, that's another argument, Marcus. Eyesight's one of those lane keep assists that people argue about. But,
yeah, it's just cameras instead of radar and LiDAR that control everything. That's the difference.
I didn't know that. But anyhow, thanks, Marcus. That's why we got you in this podcast. But we've got all of these things in this Subaru, and it's less than 35 grand. Right. So, and they lease really well. They're really easy lease payments. You too can get that stuff for yourself and your family at home. You don't have to go get a Lexus or a Range Rover or anything like that. A lot of these companies are starting to provide this stuff. You just got to look for it if you're interested in the new safety tech.
Yep. Yeah, even the smaller companies are getting great safety tech and even some of the base models, and that goes a long way. But yeah, check the airbags for sure too, because they do come different in different trims.
Well, I'm going to be checking it on my car. I don't know about you guys because I've never looked at my airbags, but I'm going to walk these two outside and we're going to look at these airbags and see what I have. And then I'll be looking at my kids'
video for you.
Yeah, I'm learning a lot. I hope people out there are learning. We're going to come back next week. At some point in time, we're going to dissect what I think a cool video would be was we're going to talk about Honda sensing. That's what Honda calls their tech compared to Toyota. I don't know what they call theirs, but there are two companies that make the RAV4 and the CR-V. We could bring those two cars on and talk about it for an hour. Mm-hmm. Why you like this safety tech over this safety tech. We're not going to do it next week, but we'll get into stuff like that and maybe have some on-site stuff with the cars as we continue to do this. This is episode number 4. We have committed to do this every week at 2:00 Mountain Time on Wednesdays. I want to thank Nancy Briss for joining us today and chiming in with her personal experience. That was very nice. And if you guys have questions, you're watching this after we're not live, please post it in the comments. Subscribe to the channel, like the YouTube channel, and join us again next week. What else you guys got before we tune out?
Well, Nancy just asked a question. It's an interesting question. I'm wondering if Marcus can answer it.
Oh, this is a question from Marcus.
Oh, that's a great question. To be honest, I haven't even thought about that. I believe if you have the side airbags, they'll still pierce through the seat cover because they're meant to tear through the stitching in the seat. I would assume seat covers would be okay. I don't see a whole lot of seat covers frequently on vehicles unless their seats are completely torn up. But yeah, I don't know 100% if you're not supposed to use seat covers on the side airbags. That's a great question, Nancy.
I ran into that because I wanted to get seat covers because I didn't want black, but you take what you can get these days. So, but I was afraid to buy them because I was afraid that they would they would impede the airbags. And, you know, I'd rather have airbags than the color of my choice.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, it depends on where the airbags are deploying from. Like if they're coming out of the door into you and they're not coming out of the seat. I mean, I'm assuming you're talking about airbags that are popping out of the seat.
Yeah, because there will be some on like the side skirts. Like in my 86 had them. It popped out of the seat right here and engulfed me in airbags. But yeah, that's a great question. I'm gonna have
I would
to
check with the
research on that
manufacturer. Really, I mean, I wouldn't even want to guess on that one. You know.
Yeah, I'll have to do research on that one because I have no clue.
I'll tell you
That's
what
a
we can
great
do.
question.
We can get Marcus to research it, Nancy. He'll put it in the comments later on.
Yeah.
We all know how he operates.
Yeah. Anybody else got anything before we check out? It was a good one today, guys. I appreciate you showing up with me.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's always.
I got some anti-tech that we should be paying attention to. Get off of the phones. Leave it alone.
Public service.
Don't drink and drive, please.
Phone down.
Please don't drink and drive, man.
Oh, that's what
Be
happened.
courteous to others.
Yeah, so that's some tech that we need to get rid of when we're in the vehicle. Put it away.
Yeah.
100%.
Get
Lock it up, throw it away. I don't care. Don't look at it while you're driving.
No, whatever you're trying to do, it'll be there when you get done. It'll be
Exactly. Yeah. People can wait.
Yeah.
Good deal, guys. Well, thanks for showing up today. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. We'll see you next week at 2:00.
Bye, guys. See you next week.